Welcome to the weekend. I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. Well, this is a tricky topic with many subtleties. It's putting guys behind bars, keeping guys behind bars, which guys to put behind bars, when to get them out of being behind bars. And when I get in trouble and the long arm of the law comes, there's one man I talk to, and that's Doug Wilson, who is the Colorado's, I want to make sure I get this right, public defender. Is that the best way to put it?
I am the state public defender, yes, sir.
All right, so I just keep your card with me, and every time I get pulled over, I have your home number. That helps out.
Well, except I'm not really in the courtroom much. I'm more of a back-end kissing bureaucrat these days.
Now, Colorado has about 400 public defenders.
Yes.
So this is a state-run program. So when the cop says to me, if you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed to you, it's one of your 400 guys, right?
That's correct.
All right. And business is good?
Business is always good.
Business is always good. And when you're facing off in the court, you face off against a guy like this, or one of his minions, Don Quick, the Attorney General from the 17th, is that right?
District Attorney for the 17th.
District Attorney, I'm sorry. District Attorney. So you're the DA, you're the prosecutor, you're the defender.
Yes,
is
sir.
it fair to say that the way the system is set up, you are in practice supposed to be adversaries? That's a check and balance. You're trying to put a guy behind bars. Your role is to defend that guy to the best of your ability.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's bring it to what's going on in Colorado. I don't know if you noticed this, but we're out of money. So every time you put a bad guy behind bars, it costs me about 30 grand a year to do that. And every time you're successful in keeping a guy out of prison, you're saving me money, until I realize that the guy you're keeping out of prison might come over and rob me and then take away even more than that money.
Or might not.
or might not. You're such a good lawyer. Allegedly, just say with the alleged perpetrator. So you guys have been involved in something called the CCJL, CCJJ, which is a Colorado Criminal and Juvenile Justice Committee. God, you're bureaucrats. Explain to me what this is all about.
It was 5 years that it's been done?
It started in 07.
Yeah. So what it has, we brought different stakeholders in the justice system: defense attorneys, prosecutors, judges, prison system, social services, state legislators, mental health workers, treatment providers for substance abuse, because there's so much of that in the system. And
this is starting to sound awful blue ribbon commissionist, and I just don't like that.
You know, John, the difference between this and a blue ribbon commission is that every year we've put forth legislation that's changed the way the system has worked. Every year we've tried to get numbers out and provide those to the public for decision making. So I'd have to say that this hasn't been a body that's been around since 07 and is presenting some recommendations. It's a body that each year chips away at the priorities of what we think we had. For instance, last year, multiple DUI sentencing was changed, and that was something that came up, and we recommended it, became legislation. So Doug and I were just talking before the show started that we can disagree as to the pace we make changes some, but this commission actually has made some changes and are actually taking on big changes, like the entire sentencing structure.
All right, so the CCJJ is basically everybody who's involved, often as allies, often as adversaries, to get together and say, all right, what are the things we can agree on that can make the system a little bit better? Last year, you guys put together some ideas. You mentioned one, and also sentencing reform. Overall, what is it that everybody on the team and adversaries of one another, what is it that they agreed to last year that became law?
Drug sentencing reform, which was, I think, a really good start in the right direction. We also tweaked some issues concerning who could get probation based upon their prior record. We also agreed, not far enough, but on escapes. Escapes are defined.
Escapes? Do you mean Stalag 13 kind of escapes?
No, that's the problem. Colorado defines escapes whether you just walk away and don't commit a new crime, or whether you do the helicopter Charles Bronson thing. They're defined as the same thing in the state. Yes.
So in other words, if I just walk out of jail or walk away from being
community corrections placement.
So in other words, I'm off doing community service or something and I walk away?
Yes.
That's an escape?
Yes.
So I can be an escapee?
Yes.
That sounds cool.
Yes, you can be an escapee.
That would be all right. All right, so...
so to me, those were the three big things. The DUI, you know, I voted I could live with it, but it certainly increased some sentences, and maybe that's right for the multiple DUI guys, because we tweaked that to impact those that had committed
Let's
priors.
talk sentencing reform, because this was controversial, particularly to the layman like myself, when all of you guys on the opposite side said, you know what we need to do? We need to change and reduce some of the sentences. We lay guys, we don't like to hear that. We love that kind of 3 strikes and you're out, book them, Dano, get them off the streets, we feel safer. Tell me about the sentencing reform. What did you guys agree to? What happened and why is it good?
Okay, well, a couple of things should be put on the table. One is that 80% of the folks going into the state prison system have a substance abuse issue. 80%. Only 20% there are drugs. So the other offenses, high substance abuse issues, are part of the fact they're going into prison.
You said 80% have a drug problem?
Yeah, drug or alcohol.
Okay.
So what is better public safety? Is it better
I've got uncles like that.
Well, hopefully they're not committing crimes or they get Doug's number too.
Yeah.
But so what is public safety? Is public safety to warehouse them for 4 years but not really get them real treatment and then dump them on the street after they're done, and we have a recidivism rate that's 50 to 60% when people get out of prison? Or is it better public safety to say, let's shorten up the sentence a little bit, but let's move that money that we're saving to better treatment, effective treatment, treatment that has to be evaluated, that's working, and then if we can reduce their addiction, you don't have them constantly cycling in and out of the justice system. So is it better to warehouse, or is it actually better to say, no, let's look at what's bringing them into the system and put dollars that makes a real difference over a lifetime?
As a fiscal conservative, I just want what keeps them off the street the cheapest. So if you can convince me that putting them through an AA program is actually going to be cheaper for me and safer for me, I'm on board. Do defenders feel the same way?
Yeah, and I thought you guys supported drug sentencing reform, John.
Oh, we do support it.
All right. But no, Don's right. We cannot continue to put 60 out of every 100 guys that come out of prison back into prison at $32,000 a year. That's insane. What we can do is get folks out for substantially less, treat them in community settings, both for substance abuse and mental health issues, because we have a tremendous number of people locked up in prison that have serious mental health issues, and save money. And we have to take a second look at what public safety means. Because when you talk about public safety, I would guess you're talking about people not committing new crimes. I think public safety goes into, we have to give folks jobs, we have to give people housing, and we have to get them treatment if you don't want them to commit new crimes. We can do that at a lot less than $32K a year.
Now, I'm torn here because as a fiscal conservative, I just don't want to spend any money. As a conservative, I want to beat up bad guys. This is where you watch all the Charles Bronson movies of where he gets even. What are those? I'm trying to remember. Death Wish or whatever.
Death Wish, right.
All right,
right,
so
right.
The inner Republican in me goes, that's the way you handle crime. It doesn't cost anything. The recidivism rate is down.
And you're never going to hear me say that there isn't a place for prisons in the state, because there are some very violent people that should be locked up. We're not talking about that population. I'm talking about drugs, property crimes, and those that are in because they just can't make it through their parole because they catch a hot urine analysis, or they're not reporting their PO. They're not committing new crimes, but they're going back to prison. There's always going to be a place for the guys that Charles Bronson would shoot, and there needs to be.
And that was our first step, John, is that we found consensus, or near consensus, on the sense of low-level drug possession cases. That's where the biggest changes were last year. And so we said, okay, if those are the ones that we can do, that we're comfortable with, it's not the dealers, it's the guys with possessions under a certain volume, let's do reform there, save the dollars, move it to treatment and better supervision, and see if we can do this. The best model of doing this is the state of Washington. If people want to get in on the Washington State Institute of Public Policy, so it's wsipp.wa.gov. And they've looked at a 20-year study of moving resources on the back end, reducing recidivism, moving the dollars up into effective, evidence-based, evaluated programs. And their projection...
When did you start doing bureaucrat speak, like evidence-based and
here's the start. We don't know. I don't know. The chief judge doesn't know. We don't have a good evaluation, I'm not sure Doug does, of which treatment programs work in any one jurisdiction, but we continue to send people out to the treatment programs. And so what we need to do is a better job of evaluating our treatment and say, what are our success rates? Fund the ones that are good, quit funding the ones that aren't good, and actually come to an evidence or value-based sense of responses from the justice system.
Talk to me in my language here, boys. I want to save some money. All right, and next year we're facing potentially $1 billion shortfall. Now, while Amendment 23 put education on autopilot, so we can't go there, and people say we can't touch Medicare, which there are some ways to touch Medicare, there are things that get squeezed. Higher ed gets squeezed, and you guys get squeezed, which means we're going to have to find out a way to do what you guys do more effectively. And I think there's some things, looking at competitive contracting of prisons, Colorado's done that. I think there's ways to save money there. But also we need to have this fight about